Yeah, Grant, one of the things that when I was in the Peace Corps in Guatemala, and Guatemala is the second most impoverished country in the Americas, only second to Haiti, where I know you've done work. So we're kind of we've been in the more impoverished places in the Americas. And I remember very distinctly, of all the experiences in your life, even high school, you're gonna only have like 10 big experiences. The rest are gonna just
Yes.
kind of be like blurry vibes that then people may like remind you of. And then you're like, oh yeah, okay, I do remember when that happened. But one of the things I most remember was my site mate, the woman who I was living with. We weren't living together, but we were like in the same town. We'd split up work.
Yeah.
She met with this very, I want to say wealthy person who had come down and wanted to give $10,000 to a project in Guatemala. And we were doing water projects. We were helping people, get water essentially. And I remember her saying to Megan, she's like, if you really want to do good work, you kind of got to go get some money.
Yes.
Until you can do that, you're always going to
Yes.
feel hamstringed because you're going to have an idea of where you think the money should be invested,
Yeah.
but you're not going to have any means to do it. And it made me think so much now, fast forwarding to Chamath palihapitiya, I think it's called effective altruism, where he basically just advocates for everyone to go out and get their bag. And he's like, this isn't
Yes.
about capitalism, right? He's like, if you want to
Yes.
complain about capitalism and be like, you can't be a capitalist and do good work, that's fine. But you're never going to be able to do the amount of work you want to do. So let's put this whole capitalism thing aside. And he's like, you need to go get your bag, because if you don't go get your bag, other people are going to get your bag, and then they're going to shape the world you live in. And he just talks about the Koch brothers. I think they're out of Texas,
Yes.
and
Yes.
how they've basically been so influential in shaping a lot of the more right-wing Republican politics that you have in the
Absolutely.
United States. And so it's
Absolutely.
called effective altruism. But I really, yeah, I really like grabbed onto that. And it was good to hear someone say, you can both do good and go get your bag. Because I think a lot of times in the world, it's like, if you want to do good, you have to like have this vow of poverty. And I think that that's probably brought in from our influences of religion and some of the religious icons we have in history. But
Hmm.
it's totally not that. Like, you can be a wealthy entrepreneur whose main goal whose main goal is to get their bag,
Yeah.
only then to share that wealth with others.
Yeah.
So I
That
I
is the
I
message of Think and Grow Rich,
exactly.
right? Carnegie put his more than bag together. I think the caveat, the challenge is I have underestimated and have not wrestled to the ground um, how all how distracting getting the bag can be
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how it shapes an identity. Like right now, today, and if anyone is dropping in, and we're way early on a Saturday morning, but maybe others will watch this later. Um, like we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship today. We're going to be talking about Jay's deal, but like I'm Mr. Coach now, and people completely forget that I've got nearly 10 years of ministry and development work, like international cross-cultural development work. And so I'm like, that's my favorite part of my identity, because people see a white business guy or a white business coach, and there's so many assumptions about that. But like when I was on the back of a moped with a bunch of Haitians throwing out rice and doing our deal and actually building up community, and they would come on the field with me, and I was like, sac passe, nabule, let's rock, man. And they're like, what is this dude doing? I like, I like that side of my identity far more. Um, and I like the adventure of it. And maybe that, I don't know. I don't know. It just feels so much more grounded, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I agree. Let's
Yeah.
transition here and bring in at Podmaster Jay.
At Podmaster Jay.
And let's dive in, because
Go
I
for it.
think what we wanted to do today was really focus on Jay's project, which I
Mhm.
think you
I've
actually
got
renamed it. So I'm going to let you tell us what the new name is. I think you're going through, and I know, and I saw the new logo and I love it.
I
But
love the new logo.
Jay, maybe you can
Great
talk to
art.
Grant and I as though we don't know what you're doing at all.
Yeah.
Not so much as a pitch, more as like this is what I'm doing, this is where I am, and this is where I want to take it. And then
Hmm.
you provided us 3 questions, and we're going to go through those questions today to try to uh, add some real time value into what you're doing. And I'm hoping personally to just maybe Grant and I will say that one thing that moves your ship 1 degree and 1 degree over the next 5 years could be a huge thing. So,
Yeah.
Jay, do you
And
want
if
to?
I may, I'm just going
Yeah,
to
please.
drop the 3 questions. I won't even dive into them, but kind of as like a pseudo outline for this thing. If someone's just dropping in right now, I want them to know, Jay just kind of submitted the big 3 questions. And that was, sales. I hate to close deals. What are my options? What are my options for that? And there's a few things we're going to talk about with that. Crowdfunding versus venture capital. How am I going to be funding this idea? And we're going to dive a little bit into that and some of his journey with hashtag sneak peek Treefrog. Maybe we'll see. And then the long-term view of my industry. Now, for those watching, we cover a lot of crypto and a lot of Web3. It just so happens that Jay's business is in Web3. So what is the long-term view on his industry? And then we'll probably dive in, as we will, into Web3. So hopefully we'll get to all 3 of those in the journey. So Jay, give us the 100,000-foot view. What's your business? What are you doing?
What's up, boys? Morning, everybody. I think we got some people on the line with us. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Or afternoon or evening on your side, wherever you are. It's really
Wherever
early.
you are.
Sun still isn't up yet. Yeah. So, like you were saying, Jack, I've been messing with the name, and the whole thing has been growing and evolving. Currently, right now, we're calling it W3 Podcast.
Current. That's
Moving away
current.
from Web3 Podcast.
Okay.
Current, yeah. And I guess some of that was sort of related to the third question that you stated, Grant, in terms of like what's the long-term view of Web3.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of people, Web3 has started taking on the same kind of connotation as crypto, where it's become almost like a dirty word. And
Yeah.
so the idea was, I still want to be in Web3, but I recognize that I can't call it Web3 necessarily.
Yeah.
And so, like the simple thing, Jarrett, I got this from you, and when we talked about this the first time, just calling it W3, and so if you're in Web3, W3 still means Web3 to you, but if you're out of Web3, W3 might just mean WWW, or it may mean nothing at all, and so you still, playing both sides, still get away with it. But so W3 podcast, and there are really 2 things that I'm trying to do. I don't have either of you ever heard of Mavis Beacon typing tutorial software?
Yes.
No, I haven't. Mavis Beacon. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. It was really popular in the 90s, early 2000s. It's how a lot of people learned to type. It was a game.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that now? Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it was, I think, the most popular typing tutorial software. They taught millions of people how to type. But the cool thing about what they did wasn't that they taught you how to type. It was that they gave you the confidence to then go and explore other things around computing. Because once you understood how the controls work, the keyboard and the mouse, and you can type, now I can go and mess around in the settings and check out some other applications, and I'm confident about what I'm doing. So my idea is to create a company that becomes the Mavis Beacon of Web3, in that people listen to the podcast, they're entertained in the same way that Mavis Beacon entertains you with gaming. They become entertained through the podcast, and then they have the confidence to then go out and start exploring other areas of Web3, and whether that's, get a wallet, buy some crypto, get an NFT. That's sort of like the overarching idea. But then when I think more specifically about podcasts, and why I think podcasts are going to be important, we know, like, from a lot of data, that people are actually not watching as much video as they did before. I think that's
Really?
sort of, yeah.
That's a surprising metric.
Sanjay, what's up?
Sanjay.
Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you're at.
Jay, can you speak more on that
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
metric? Because I remember you posted this, in the last couple of weeks, talking about how, especially when it comes to podcasting on YouTube specifically. Do you want to speak more on that? Because I think it's absolutely fascinating for people to be up to date on what that looks like.
Yeah. So so this stat is specific to YouTube. The way that it works is, they know from like some surveys they were doing that when people engage with YouTube videos, they're more likely to have the video playing in the background and then some other application in the foreground. So they're not
I
watching
do
the
that.
video, they're just listening to the audio. Or the video is playing in one room and they're in another room doing some other kind of work. So they're just listening to it in the distance. And that's how more people are engaging with video. Jalal, what's up, buddy? That's how people are engaging with video now. It's really more for an audio point. And I think a lot of that comes from what we experienced during the lockdown. You know, you're at home and now you're multitasking a whole lot more because you're doing work, you're doing chores, you're taking care of the kids, you're cooking meals, you're doing all of this stuff all at the same time. And, you know, what audio gives you over video is with video, you have to give the video all of your attention. You got to look at it, you got to listen to
Interesting.
it, you got to remove the distractions. But with audio, you can be doing other stuff. You can multitask. You can do chores. You can drive. You can go to the gym. You can be taking a
Interesting.
walk. You can take care of the kids. You can have your baby in your arm, you know, and looking after the baby, but still listening to it as you're going, as you're doing that. And so I recognize that audio, I think, is going to be the next big thing. In fact, we talk a lot. In the years past, we talk a lot about cord cutting, people leaving cable and going to streaming, like whether it's Netflix, Apple TV, HBO Max, Disney Plus. We assume that everyone was eventually going to be in streaming. I actually think what's going to end up happening is people are going to go towards audio and podcasting rather than streaming, and that's just because of the price. You know, I don't know what Netflix cost anymore. I got rid of it like over a year ago because of the price, and you know, since then you've had all of these other streaming companies that have come out, and they also cost money as well. Nothing is free, but you know what is free? Podcasting. And there's some really great free podcasts and some really great free stories. And if people's time is now a premium, you know, you're not spending as much time just sort of mindlessly looking at videos. You're gonna try to get stuff that's cost effective and worth your time. I think you end up going to podcasting. I think that's what ends up happening in the end. So
Interesting.
the whole idea behind it is, you know, currently, I don't know if podcasting apps are set up to really take on the flow of people who are ready to come into audio. If you recently, Spotify said that they have 4.4 million podcasts on their platform, which is ridiculous. Like, because they don't really have a podcasting algorithm. There's no way for them to recommend to you podcasts that really meet your interests. So you just have to basically go through all those 4.4 million podcasts. You know, the search, there's a search, but it only searches by description and the podcast name. It doesn't even search based on the episode information. So it's really tough for you to figure out what's the right show for you. So I think really there's something needs to be done, but I think it already exists. It already exists in TV. So in TV, you have channels that are dedicated to a single theme. So ESPN only does sports. Comedy Central only does comedy. You know, Nickelodeon only does kid stuff. I think eventually you have podcast apps that only do one thing. And so that's what I want to create, a Web3 podcast app where all of the
Let's
podcasts are just about
let's
Web3.
capture that. Let's capture that real quick. So you gave us this premise, and for those watching, like, I think Jarrett and I are chomping at the bit to talk about this because on our normal Tuesday show, on the normal Tuesday show, we would actually like dive deep into where this is going because it's very intriguing. But we are here to answer a few questions, and so you gave us context. What's your hypothesis of like where you think the industry's going, where you have a lot of skill, and then you brought it home because your first question is about sales. So you brought it home to this app, and this app is a single purpose podcast app, and that single purpose is Web3 podcast app, where you're going to aggregate these podcasts that are niche specific to what we know as Web3, and it might kind of be tangential. So my question about your first question is, when you think about the question of I'm not good at sales, how should I tackle sales? Is this the product you'll be selling? the podcast app? Like by sales, you just mean getting people onboarded onto your app? Like what is the context of your sales question?
Yeah, the sales question. So the podcast app is more like a B2C play, and I think that I can understand really easily. It's like ads and subscriptions. The
Okay.
question about sales is the B2B play. So I know
Okay.
one of the approaches that I'm taking
Mm.
is entertainment versus education. So like most podcasts, even to a certain extent, a lot of what we do is about education. It's interview style, and you trying to teach people stuff. I want to do just like straight entertainment, just stories, powerful stories, cinematic stories, just in audio format. And I think, for Web3, what's really cool is that they need those types of narratives to pull people into the ecosystem. And so there are companies that are in Web3 that are willing to sort of take their company's persona and turn it into a story. And the idea behind the sales is like, how do I close the deals with these companies? I'm getting into the conversations and meeting the right people, but I just don't have like the instinct to, go from, hey, that's a really good idea and I think I like it, to like, okay, well, actually pay me money to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Jarrett, you have a thought there?
Yeah,
Or a question or something?
well, one of my when you were talking, so many things came up, and I see your vision now a lot more clearly. The Mavis Beacon positioned it properly as what you want to be. You basically want to be the gateway drug into Web3, which is beautiful. And I now see how the platform could play out. And I think I'll bring that up when we get to the third question about whether Web3 is relevant, if it has the staying power, because I have a big idea there. But going to the sales and revenue thing, one of the things you spoke about when it comes to podcasting or audio being maybe better long term than video was its affordability, its ability to be able to be approached by the average person, either as the consumer that doesn't want to pay because they're in the world of free content, or so. And then when you said B2C is more straightforward and you said subscriptions, I am a huge proponent of not having subscriptions moving forward. And I actually just had a guy. So what I want to do is I want to post to you something that I've recently come across in one of the podcasts I've done. And then I want to hear your ideas on how you think the B2C and the B2B, because I think that's where you're struggling. I think if it was an easier sell with the B2B or the B2C, then the sale just would kind of happen because the value would be there. People would say, yeah, I want to basically invest economically in this or not. And maybe you just don't have that built out. And I think we're going to continue to dive into that today, explore that more. But one of the things that just happened, because I think we've talked about this off mic and also not Crypto Bros, is how vehemently against I am having ads on my podcast or anything that I'm a part of, because I just think it waters it down. And I've struggled, however, to figure out how to do that. Jay, you and I have discussed off mic the idea of having an NFT and having kind of like getting paid to listen feature. We have play to earn in video games, and I had a guest on, and his name is Joe DePinto. Joe, if you're ever listening to this, I don't know if you're up yet. You're in LA, so it's very early for you. And he has this thing called the Haste Arcade, which is an online gaming arcade where you can go and you can play. You play a game and you can pay a cent, 10 cents, $1, $10, $100, or $1,000 to play arcade games. And the higher you get on the leaderboard, you'll accumulate money from all the other players that day or in the window of time of play who have also played if you end up on the leaderboard. It's a fascinating idea, but it's all done with micropayments. And on the podcast, I say, hey, what's another use case for micropayments that you see moving forward? He gave a couple. If you want to listen to it, episode 39, More Than Blockchain, totally giving a plug here. But one of the ones he gave solves my subscription issue, but it uses micropayments. So he said, when you go on to read an article in the New York Times and you really want to read it because it's about something that you're fascinated about, but then the paywall comes up and it's like, subscribe for $5.99 a month. And you're like, I'm just not going to do that. I'm into free content. But he said in the future, when it comes up, there could be the monthly subscription. Maybe that's still there. But he's like, what would be better is if there was a micropayments option. Because if it was like you have 5 cents, pay 5 cents to engage with this content, and then you get it for the day, or you get it for an hour. Most people would say, I just want to know what's going on in the world. I want to know what the New York Times is saying about this thing. For me, if it's like has to do with blockchain, 5 cents, I already have my wallet connected. Boom, 5 cents, micropayment, done. So I'm wondering, and this also goes to something else that's also happened with the blockchain. A guy I'm still working with, Brandon Torrey, he's doing something very similar for audio, and I'm going to put more than blockchain on this platform, so where people can go pay to listen to my episodes. And maybe that's something you could do to get away from the subscription-based model, and go more towards a micropayments model by having a wallet be connected. So it's where people will still be able to support the creators without getting into a long-term subscription thing. It will also allow you to check out an episode. Just be like, do I want to support this creator or not? Because I really think Web3 is about ownership, and it's about direct to creator. We talk about direct to consumer in Web2, but it's direct to creator financial support. So that's how I wanted to kind of put it to you, because I think Grant's question maybe ties back into my long soliloquy at this point, but it's like, how, what is the revenue model for this project and this company? Because I think if that's more streamlined on how the users will play with it, then the B2Bs that will come on, they'll see that value. And then I think the conversation of sales is easier, because when I think of sales, it's always easier when everything is a lot more transparent.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I like where you're going with this, Jay. You know what it makes me think of? Like, I've been getting a whole lot more into storytelling. I've been
Yeah.
looking at those master classes, like I think the company's called Masterclass.
Yeah.
And to get it, you got to pay for a
Yeah.
year's subscription. Like, you can't just pay for a month. You can't just pay for a class. I was thinking to myself, like, hey, if they did like a micropayment thing where I could just watch one video for like $5, I would have done that. But I don't want to pay for the year. And so maybe it's the same type of thing. Like, I see it with other podcast networks too, right?
So the real question is, how do we sell? And Jarrett proposed a solution. And the interesting thing about Jarrett's solution is you specifically said, Jay, I don't need to solve B2C. I need to solve B2B.
Exactly.
Now, Jarrett's answer was like, well, let's innovate. And it was an innovative idea about B2C. If Jarrett's describing a pure meritocracy. If you have good quality content, people will stick around and listen, and there will be a deposit to your account. So then the question, let's just say hypothetically that works. You could get rid of subscriptions, get rid of this Web2 paradigm, and you'll be in this Web3 paradigm. So then the question is do you even need to solve for B2B sales? So I guess my question, I still have a few more questions. Jarrett's idea was there. Maybe you were thinking about that. If you have subscriptions, let's say, forget Jarrett's idea for a second. Let's just say you had subscriptions. Why do you need B2B?
Yeah, that to me is like, how does B2B, I understand in the platform having this thing where people can go to get Web3 audio content that's highly exclusive, or that's maybe the only place that honestly is there, because you've made that relationship with them. Like, maybe that's where only Not Crypto Bros, maybe that's the only place you can get it. That's great. How does the B2B relationship? Because I understand that as the user will come on, engage with the platform. It's no different than the way we get on Spotify. So maybe use Spotify for the example. Like, why does Spotify need B2B? Are you just strictly speaking about investment and partnerships to keep the baby going and have it grow? Or is there a play where B2B comes in, and because they're not Crypto Bros, and Apple comes to you, not Apple, horrible example because they have their own podcast, but Ford, right? Ford's starting to get into the electric car business, and they want to basically fight off Elon. And they're like, the way we do that is we share our story weekly, and we're also going to have a blockchain component. So we're going to put our stuff on the Web3 network. But we also want to, fund the Web3 network. I'm just kind of making this up. It may not even make sense, but what is the relationship that you would want with Ford that wants to create a Web3 podcast? Because it's really hazy for me.
You said it, and I'm thinking to myself, like, you know what? Honestly, it might just be fear. It might just be like, I'm afraid of building a community. And like, in terms of revenue generation, it seems in my mind easier to generate more revenue from less B2B people than it would be to generate the same amount of revenue by having to build a massive community.
And so this is where I was going to diverge with Jarrett. And like, I do a lot of hat switching. So like in one hat, like if this was a brainstorm session, I would be crawling up Jarrett's booty and going, this is the best thought ever, right? Like, I really like it because you get rid of the need for B2B sales, that pressure goes away. But then I put on my entrepreneur hat and I've fucking been there and done it too early in the morning for the F word. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. If I were to be starting your podcast network right now, there is no flipping way I would throw the dice on a technology that someone is currently experimenting and hypothesizing about. That's one. And the other is, dude, I tried to build a Discord community and that shit is tough. It is hard ass work. It is distracting work from you working on your craft. You have to massage many more egos. You have to massage so much. So if currently, like right now, I work with a major Lakeland magazine for the website, and they still have a traditional sponsorship model. And I'm talking to them about the stuff that Jarrett's talking about. Like, guys, I'm trying to convince you, you got to go with NFTs. You got to check this stuff out. But their income is established. If I were to be starting from what the startup years are to me is guerrilla street warfare. Don't get cute. Don't reinvent the wheel. Go sell your pants off. Sell B2C, sell B2B, sell anything. Go start a lemonade stand, because the practical reality is you have an inspiration and this idea. And if that drags out 6 months before you focus on the craft, you're going to lose the inspiration. So if B2B for year one, and I just saw a great thing by Alex Harmozy, sell 2 years, like sell a 2-year contract for the price of one, but gather it all up front. That's not even Web 2, that's Web 1. But you got to fund your dream. The boots on the ground reality is that I don't know where you could go this week and set up these MicroPayments and MetaMask wallets to go fund your craft. So like, I see both hats, but if this show today is about how do I solve a problem, let's solve for sales. Are you just selling sponsorship? Or are we talking about, let me ask, and so I'll pose this to you. Jarrett represents kind of an innovative brainstorming approach. Right now I'm representing like a shoulder check, like street approach of like, let's go get your business up and running. But you were hitting a vein when you said, maybe I'm afraid. Are you actually afraid of building community, or is your intuition telling you it's a more difficult path?
I think it's more difficult. It is. It's like you were saying, there are more egos to massage, right? Versus just the one CMO or CEO that you have to deal with on the B2B side.
What would be, so you said you've been having B2B appointments already.
Yeah.
How have those conversations, what are you pitching them? Plugs? Like how has that gone so far?
The pitch is podcast miniseries. So take your company and we either do like an interview style thing where we talk about your business and what you're doing, and then you use that to share it with clients, or we take your company and we write your company's story and turn that into like almost like a cinematic experience.
So they're the client.
Mm-hmm.
And the series is about them. So this isn't just an ad model where you're going B2B and selling ads.
Right.
This is a potential client model. So you could actually fuse a lot of what Jarrett's saying with some of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You could kind of fuse those models. Jarrett, was that what you were thinking, like out of the gate? Like these were clients, not just ad sales?
Yeah, because Jay and I had previous conversations, I kind of knew that that's what he wanted to do. And that's where like my Ford example, I was like, yeah, they're going to create a mini series to talk about, basically give themselves PR, but also teach people a lot about how difficult it is to shift a petrol-based business into a battery-based business.
Interesting.
That to me was there, but I'm also just kind of, and to go back to what Jay said, and I want to thank Jay just for being so brutally honest, because I don't think, when I've talked to founders and I've also talked to myself when I was trying to create stuff, that fear that you speak to, I think is looking for financial security over
Mm,
potentially building something that's going to last longer. And I remember Jeff Bezos's quote, and I will never forget this quote. He was talking about how two things. He was like, everyone's trying to grow too quick, and no one understands that 15% compounding over 50 years is a freaking beast. He's like, that's what we've done with Amazon. And he was also like, whatever you build, and the amount of time it takes to build, if it takes 3 months to build something, it's over in 3 months. That's it. So make it take 5 years, and it will take 5 years to probably destroy itself and all of a sudden not have a market product match or a service product match. So, and that's what I see with NFTs and I see with Web3 all the time. People take 3 months,
mhm.
they work their ass off and they grind and they create this awesome NFT project. In 3 months after that, no one knows about it because however long it takes you to get to market, that's how long it takes you to disappear. And I've seen that time and time again. When he first said it, I was like, "Oh man, I don't want that. Like, doesn't feel right." But I've
Doesn't
seen it
feel right.
doesn't feel right, but I've seen it time and time again. Now, here's the thing. We always have our exceptions, and sometimes we push the exceptions to the front to say, well, that's why we should do it, right? Like Bored Ape Yacht Club, I don't think it took them a long time to get off the ground, and now they probably have something that's going to last. It's out. The launch time is definitely outpaced or outlasted, I should say, the time of existence, right? The build time to the time of existence, but most
Mm,
things don't. Honestly, most things don't. And I see
mm.
people with e-commerce, and this is why everyone's tried drop shipping and they've tried all these side hustles to get their bag on the side, but they'll put in a little bit of time and then it doesn't work. It's why people start posting about, everyone tells me about how they're the best baker on the internet and they put up the coolest photos and the best videos. But as long as it takes them to get going, normally it takes them to fall off if they don't have a long-term vision and a purpose as to why they're doing it. Right. And
Here's
so
what I think that is a fact. I do agree with that mechanism, but under the hood, how do I apply that principle to my life? Don't just take forever because that's bad advice, right?
sure.
But what is it about time? Like Gary Vee's often like, be patient, right? Like he never tried to build a company fast. But to Jay's original question, and we can totally deviate from it, but the idea of sales, B2B, B2C, kind of doesn't matter because what I was enticed about that question was the skills acquisition. So why do we have flash in the pan dropship companies that blow up one day and then tank the next? They didn't actually learn any skills. They didn't have like executive skills that carry them forward. And this idea that Jay is trying to wrestle. Now, he could be wrestling the sales skill on the side of community development because he's intimidated by do hard things and your life will be easy, do easy things, your life will be hard, right? And or maybe the sales skill is on the B2B end where he sells someone big. I think it doesn't matter how you answer it in these early days, especially with Jarrett's timeline of, hey, you're gonna, Jay, you've already talked about this wave coming. Well, is that 6 months or is it 6 years? Well, it's over a timeline. Well, you got some time. And so you could develop this skill of sales and build both a community as well as a community of rich ass MFers that are B2B. Like, I mean, it's all sales development. So I guess my question is, as you've been pitching these companies, you pitched your series, they said, this is a cute idea. I want to know what was the moment from that you got it off your chest. They nodded and said, that's a badass idea. And you both like, okay, we'll talk next time. What was that awkward transition that didn't move to? If it costs X, would you write the check today? Like, I'm interested in the sales skill. Doesn't matter if it's community or these guys. Because if you can nail it for B2B, you could always change your strategy to community and just sell that. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah, I think what happened is I never gave a price. I mean, I have the price in my head, but then like it's like I just never actually sold it. And there's a couple people would say like, "Hey, yeah, send me like your deck or whatever." And I'm like, I don't have a deck. I didn't say that, but I like in my head I know like
Sure.
that's something I got to go build.
So if you didn't get a no or a fuck off, you actually didn't fail at sales. You never entered the sales arena. You just brainstormed with somebody. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if I started this shit? Yeah, that'd be awesome. Let's talk again later when you're awesome.
Yeah, send me your deck. Jay's like, nah, that takes work.
That's so Web2, bro.
Bro, I just ideate. This is actually a perfect moment to shift into the next question, because it's exactly what we're talking about. And it goes back to the value proposition of this. Why would somebody from a creator standpoint want to put their content on this network? And why would a B2B company want to create a mini series to put on the network? And it just goes to the value prop and, like, the why, right? And that's for me the value proposition. And it goes into the
That's
next
good.
very fluidly, which is the crowdfunding. Do you want to do the funding? Do you want to do crowdfunding, which I think in Web3 looks like an NFT? Or do you want to do VC, which is kind of a little bit what we've already been talking about, which is you find somebody to come with their bag and they're going to stake it on your great idea. So what is better for a solopreneur, as you put it? And Grant, you want to start, or Jay, do you want to add any more context around this question?
This actually seems
Yeah,
like
no, I
so.
get.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go for it. Oh, I was gonna say that I definitely see where you're coming from, Jarrett, in terms of how these things are connected. Um, Immediately as soon as you said that, I thought, yeah, whether it's consumers or businesses, or rather creators or businesses, the thing that's going to drive them towards the app and towards the network is whether or not there are people there. And I think one of the best ways of making sure that there are people there is by engaging them through crowdfunding. I think that's sort of where you were taking the conversation. Am I right?
Yeah, it's just to say that whether you do an NFT or you get a VC, the NFT being a community, the VC being probably an individual, right? Whether it's an
Mhm.
individual entity or an entity of individuals, or some individual person who has money, it goes back to the same question for me on the B2C, which is the community. That's the community. And then the B2B would be the entity of individuals, a company, or an individual. And it just goes back to, what is the value proposition? What is that very simple idea that you can sell to both the creator to be on the platform, or the business to put their miniseries on the platform, also to the creator, also to anyone? Why would they want to buy your NFT? Because that's basically what crowdfunding is. We can call it crowdfunding. We could say you're going to make your whatever GoFundMe page, but it's still creating an idea you're going to sell to the masses, and that they're going to be like, yeah, I want to invest in this guy's idea. Or the VC, same thing. So I
Mm.
see them very, very similar. And I think it just comes down to, what are the reasons that you would, here we are. Grant and I are VCs, and we have multi-millions of dollars, and this, and we're looking for new ideas. And we definitely want to use tech, because we want the marginal cost of reproduction or, replication to be very, very low. And we've invested in tech companies before. Why should we go with you? Especially, as you just said, you don't have currently any community. You don't have any movement here. You don't have, like, 1,000 monthly active users, 2,000 monthly active users, any amount of monthly active users to kind of prove initial inertia. Um, how would you go ahead and kind of create that conversation? Because that's the one thing I don't think I've heard yet. Because my thing, and this is something that a guy, his name is Zach. Zach, you're gonna get a shout out here, but he's one of the most brilliant business people I've ever been around. He's like, great, I hear your idea. Because for me, I'm like, I hear your idea. Why doesn't Spotify just create their own spinoff? Spotify W3. And they probably put, I don't know, $20 million into it, which is nothing for them because they're $1 billion valuated company. And then they have this whole subset thing. And they can even tie in a wallet, because they'll make a connection with MetaMask easier, because they're freaking Spotify. So, point being, I've kind of gone all over the place. What is the reason why Grant and I want to give you $1 million? We're sitting down at lunch. We get it. We're in Web3. We see the
Yeah.
power of this. We also are podcasters. So we see the power of audio, and we know how that's changing, because, as you said, you can passively engage with it. You can be doing your laundry and listen. You can be on a bike ride and listen, get some knowledge, get some entertainment, or some education. But what is it? Why is it that we should put our money on your horse to win a race that, and that's part of the third question, we're not even sure if the race exists, but why?
Mm. Well, and let me ask a question there too, from the context of Jarrett's statement there. You wrote sales. I hate to close. What are my options? Partnerships, hire, closer. Those are some ideas. Now we've moved on to the second question is what is best for solopreneur, crowdfunding or VC?
Mm-hmm.
I was confused on your B2B sales question because I didn't realize B2B meant you were trying to be a marketing company that was getting businesses, whether local businesses or Ford in Jarrett's example, you were going to be their storyteller in the form of audio podcasts. You'd create it for them. Maybe it would appear on your network. Maybe they'd pay you 20 or 30K for the year to kind of produce that. That would also then fund your passion side projects. Then you ask a crowdfunding versus VC question. And to me, it sounds like that's just an extension of the first question. You're trying to solve a problem.
We agree on that. I think, at least for Grant and myself, we're picking up the same pieces because I see them as the same question as how is this funded or how is there revenue? That's
yeah. So before I even get Jarrett, before I even get to asking what's in it for us, the VCs, I would actually say, wait, what's in it for Jay to get a VC? And if he's like, well, I don't want a VC, I really just want to fund storytelling. And I think that if I were your coach and we were sitting in a room, I'd just say to you, you don't actually fucking want a VC. You want money, right? VCs come in. There's a whole ecosystem of VCs, angel stage, seed stage, series A, series B. And everyone is getting involved, accepting certain levels of dilution in terms to get to a payoff. That's not what you're doing. I don't think, and correct me at any point that I'm way off. I think what you're just saying is, I need to sell something because I want to full-time tell badass stories. And when I think B2B, I immediately went to ads because you could just tell the stories you want. If you start selling storytelling for businesses, you're a marketing company. That might be your model. So I guess what I don't know, whether Jarrett's path's right, I don't even have a path because it sounds like you're still formulating your roadmap. So let me ask it this way in a more poignant way. Is your business, are the legs of your business telling your own unique stories and selling ads in exchange for growing a listener audience, AKA a community, and possible other podcasters? And then another leg of income, being hired for services to become a podcast content marketer for businesses. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yep, that's the original idea, yeah.
Then to answer your second question, my 2 cents is you don't fucking need a VC. Crowdfunding would be a very interesting path. Yay. You know, does the context make that answer make sense?
What context? What do you mean?
The context of you're not trying to build a business that you're going to have an exit that would pay off VCs what they're looking for. So VCs isn't even like a framing that you even need necessarily, unless one of your legs, a third possible leg, is going public or doing a sellout or a buyout. Spotify buys you out, to answer Jarrett's direction. Spotify goes, well, shit, I could build this for 20 mil, or I could pay Jay 10 mil, and there's an exit. And my VCs are now happy because VCs have their own value proposition they're buying into, and that is massive leverage.
Mm-hmm.
So the context to me is, I want to tell badass stories and develop a following and either get subscription income or NFT income or community income, micropayments of some kind, and just tell stories the rest of my darn life. And I'll augment that with B2B sales of hiring myself out. That context is the context that I'm thinking of when I'm hearing you. So then I would just nix the VC thing because it seems like there's no appetite or interest to build an exit. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. It actually, I think it lines up with some other advice that I've gotten too. That's like pushing me towards crowdfunding. But yeah, some of how I feel still goes back to that original feeling of just fear. Like it like you're saying, it's really tough to build a community, like, I've been building my community on LinkedIn, and even with that, you still have the issue of how do you monetize this community? Like, how do I charge these people that I know think of as my friends? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, I
timing is crazy. Go ahead, Jarrett. Go ahead, Jarrett.
yeah, timing is everything, and we all struggle with this, right? And I think that this is a really great conversation. So if you're listening to this and you're a creator of anything, you are super not alone, because there's three not crypto bros right here that struggle with the same thing. We want to balance creating great daily content, weekly content, monthly content, but also not be asking all the time for money or being like,
Yes.
here's a subscription wall.
Yes.
And I think that Gary Vee has been the best to navigate this ever. There's no one else on the internet that gives away that much. He never asks for money, ever, ever, because he has this Vayner thing behind him that just allows him to do high level client and consulting. So for me, it's like, I think you need to not focus on making money on this as much as you can in the beginning, because that's the only way I think you're going to build community in a world where people do not want to pay anything. We're so off put to pay anything to get content because there's a plethora of it, and every day millions of hours of YouTube and podcasting, maybe not millions of hours of podcasting, but audio content is out there. So what I would say is trying to find another way, at least off the bat, for the user especially, to kind of navigate it. And then maybe if you bring on Ford, we're just using Ford because I think it's a company known around the world. If you bring them on and you help them create the miniseries, that's where you charge them, and that keeps the thing moving forward. I think
Mhm.
financing in Web3 has got to be a little bit different. And when you say crowdfunding, it can't be GoFundMe, it can't be a platform that's going to take any fees. It needs to just be an NFT. So the question then for me is, if we're not doing VCs, which I think Grant's spot on, and you want to do crowdfunding, which I think you totally should, you should go get a bunch of Web3 creators, like you have two on here who will probably support this, create some NFT and use the NFT to formulate and, create the lane to which you want to do this. And that may help you organize your thoughts and the value proposition a little bit more.
No, I mean,
I
I
go
think
ahead.
I understand what the value proposition is if we do, like, in terms of if we do an NFT, the idea is, like, for creators, and lots of people want to be creators. I think, like, the number one thing that kids want to do now is become a creator, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or what have you. It's I want to create, but I don't necessarily have the equipment or the time or the skills to be able to produce something that's going to be really great. The idea is, if you buy this NFT or if you join into this community, you automatically get opportunities to come into these productions and be voiceover and be on the production staff, to actually join in the production of these stories. I think that's something that people will buy into if they had the opportunity to do it. Love to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I think that your idea, this idea of this Web3 podcast network, is no one else is thinking about it. No, I've never heard this idea of, let's put it all together. Let's all put it into one. Let's package it in one thing where you can go onto this app or this platform and just only get that content. I, I, I think that that's an extremely unique one. And yeah, to be able to have an NFT where then I could connect with other Web3 audio content creators, I think that that would be really cool, because it's an insular economy. But I think that it doesn't have enough inertia, even though I'm just buying an idea. I'm still just buying into an idea, not any ounce of a community. And I think that's where it kind of gets tough. Um,
Hmm.
Instead of you saying, hey, buy my NFT, because you know who's in my NFT? I've got 50 podcasters from around the world over 15 different languages, and we're all going to help each other build this Web3 thing. And as that grows, you basically own a share, which is an NFT. And at any times you want to sell out, and it's a money thing for you, that's great. But what we're really trying to do is build community. That's how I would see that NFT conversation going. And if you were to sell, 1,000 NFTs for whatever, that might help you initially fund. And I guess my question is, do you have the bandwidth to build this while doing other things to make money to get this thing off the ground a little bit more, to add as much value as possible. And I think I'm just blabbering, but what I'm trying to ask and be a lot more direct. Do you have the time? Can you build this thing on the side, get it to a place where the inertia is going to kick in and it will be a snowball going downhill that nothing's going to stop? Because what I'm hearing a lot from you, and it's the most reasonable thing in the world we live in, is I need money so I can focus on this full time. That's what I want to do. Am I at all right? And because that seems reasonable, right?
No, for sure. I think a major piece of the money pie actually goes into marketing, and maybe the real reason behind that is to try to buy a community, but and maybe that's a little different than building a community.
Oh, I think it is. I mean, community can't be faked. It's, it's relationship, and you could buy a community because the original person you bought it from built a good, strong set of relationships. But I think buying communities is a complete valid direction. We see this with buying businesses, like buying gyms, but it doesn't take but a few months for the gym members to go, I fucking love this new owner, or I hate this new owner. So I think that's a path. But I like how Jarrett summarizes, I want money to do my thing. Well, so do I. I want money to fucking surf and paint all day, right? I also have a vision that I want to make an impact in the world. You know what I haven't heard? Passionate vision. And that, we got 1 hour to cover this, and I get that that's limited. When you do a sale, this is mostly about sales. You're talking about the long-term view of Web3. Is this a good strategy? I think me and Jarrett agree. The W3 direction is 100% on point. You've got a lot of good research about audio. I think we could put question 3 to bed and say, I think this hypothesis could make you good money and make an impact. So then we back up to sales, and then we ask the heart of the matter, getting you money. That's really where we're at. And this, I wish more entrepreneurs were that transparent. This is what I would say. Like, and for the sake of time, we're at the 52-minute moment, and I would just go for this. The best idea that has the most clear vision, the person with the clearest vision always wins, meaning people will swarm, resources will come. The best thing with the clearest vision I heard was your B2B sales for helping businesses transition to better storytelling in a real video and audio world, specifically with your focus on audio format storytelling. What % of their marketing budget, and do you know about marketing? I mean, you're doing a lot of marketing. When I pitch marketing or my services, I say, hey, you're $1 million company. What's your goal next year? Our goal is 2 million. That means you should be spending about, 220 million or 220,000 this year. So you always spend about 11% this year on your target revenue. Of that 220,000, you're spending this on your website, this on your marketing. Would it be worth $20K to gain 20,000 new listeners? What are you talking about? With audio storytelling, I could actually tell the story of Ford going hybrid and going its journey. It would be a 9-episode story arc or a 4-episode story arc. And I commit to bringing in X amount of new fans of Ford through this audio format storytelling. Then you fund yourself and fund the vision, which we are still kind of like brainstorming on how to fund the crypto murder stories and the passion projects. So if it was just about the shortest distance to money, I think you would stand a chance, especially with your reputation of having worked for a Grant Cardone company and having produced as much content as you have produced. Your CV looks great. Grow what you know. Leverage what you know. Go sell these businesses. Tell them it's going to cost $1,500 an episode, $3K an episode, and you'll do this. And then if they like the results, we'll renew our contract in 3 months and build a freaking business. To me, that's what I'm hearing when I see all this and I simmer down. And I love Jarrett's reflections, because in the end, we just want money. So what commodity could we sell that's so tangential to what we're doing that we could just weave in and out and have deliverables? But that raises flags inside of you, just like building a community raises flags. What's your intuition? What resistance do you see appearing in you when either we talk about Jarrett's thought of doing NFTs, my thought about going B2B? What are some of the resistances that come up in you?
I mean, not a ton. Like I'm with everything you say, and I think this whole conversation has given me a lot more clarity. There's something that you just said at the end that like made me get that fear feeling again when you actually
Mm.
started talking like actual numbers. When you said 1,500 per episode, I was like, damn, I even charge that. Like, like what's my value? What's the stuff that I'm doing actually worth?
Jarrett, have you dealt with value-based pricing yet?
I have not, but before you dive into that, which I'm excited to hear, I want to propose two things. One, that we go a little bit longer than an hour because I don't want to not finish this. Really feel like we've come to an end. If you guys are okay with that and you have the time
I have a
to,
few moments, but if I slip out, I'll slip out quietly. Go ahead.
okay, you have a few moments. Two, well, then we should probably keep it to what, maybe 10 more minutes. Let's just try to be, does 10 minutes work for you, Grant?
Yeah.
Okay. Two, Jay, I think you need to overvalue yourself. I think you need to be overconfident. You need to be a bull in the china shop with your confidence when it comes to creating audio. Grant and I are both podcasters here, and I confidently now say I've done about 210 episodes. So I am a podcaster. I can totally say that, and I look up to you. You are like a guy I look up to. If I'm LeBron, you're Michael Jordan, right? You're still doing a lot of things, but I'm learning from your legacy and as it grows. So I think you can totally charge Ford $1,500 an episode to produce. You should, if they're gonna pay, charge them 10,000
Easily.
because their perception of value and what's that's gonna do is gonna be different from your perception of your value and your worth to what you're putting into it. Right. What
Mhm,
they get out of it, you may not be able to understand. So
mhm.
that's one thing. And you also said, I don't have the equipment. I don't have this. We all know you don't need a lot to tell a good story if you have the proper storyteller and the story to tell. The equipment is me. When the pandemic hit, and I remember listening to a podcast from, I think, Jon Stewart. He was on his computer. He didn't even have a mic, but it was Jon Stewart and he was telling these cool
Yeah,
stories. So you didn't care. You just listened.
yeah.
So I think the quality of the obviously you want the highest production you can, but I think that you need to be totally aware that on the internet there are very few people that see the landscape as you do and are in it day to day and are building in by diverse amount of ways in audio. So I think that you can charge whatever you want, man. You can charge whatever the people will pay. How much is a house worth? What the buyer is willing to pay. That's it. Full stop. Oh, that house is $1 million? I don't know. See what people pay for it. They want to pay $200,000 for it. That house is $1 million? Well, the market says, and people are willing to pay $2 million cash because now we're in a pandemic. Now wood has gone up 5x or whatever it is. So the value of anything is only worth what people are willing to pay for it. And we know that
Yeah.
because NFTs, right? So I think you can charge whatever feels comfortable for you, what's going to get your needs met, and then maybe a little bit more if it's a bigger company. So those are that I just wanted to say that out loud.
That's good.
I think you need to hear that like
You're
in the,
worth it.
yeah, in the internet, and especially with Web3 audio, you're an elite player in my opinion.
So real quick, value-based pricing. Um,
Thanks, boys.
honestly,
Appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. Value-based pricing, check this out. Value-based pricing doesn't say what are you worth at all. You look at the problem. That means you're viewing the world from your case and you're selling yourself. Meaning, I need something, I'm a beggar in hand. You and I should just go down to the corner of LA with a hat in hand and start begging for money. It's the same thing because we're thinking about ourselves. True sales has a thorough, deep, intimate understanding of that person's need, not even a glimmer of the market opportunity. I wrote this note down. Is this your desired vision because you're a prophet in this sense? You can see the future coming and you want this for them. That's cute, but do you actually want to do this work? And that's another question. So like I know what I want to see in terms of a training company and I want to do the training, but I started a billing company because I saw the future of what it could do for people, but I didn't want to do the work. So I found a partner. That was just a sidebar, but I think you can see the future of what's going on. But does that actually match the pain Ford or any average small business company? I mean, you could do a company making 500,000 a year. They would still pay for it if you connected with their pain. So the real question is, when you've sat across from these people, did it involve enough questions? And I have this whole sales system. I actually train sales, and I call it the unsales system, because no one likes to sell, but you don't have to sell because you think sell is pushing something out. Selling is actually drawing something to you, and that is the pain that someone else is experiencing.
Mm.
So if you can actually understand the local landscaper, what are they experiencing with pain? But what's their story? And stories are more interesting. Can I evoke this story from them? So then the question is this to that person about pricing. What are you currently spending on paid ads, banner ads, Google ads, any of that stuff? Well, I'm spending $2,000 a month. Okay. How many leads is that actually getting you? What's that doing for you? How intimately aware? Now, what if I could, in a single month, produce a 3-episode story, and then I'll find another partner, they won't know this part, that will actually do maybe some like Instagram stories, Instagram reels that are spinoffs of some of these concepts that are endearing this landscape company to their clients, but you're going to tell a broader story arc. And maybe you don't even hire for the second part. Maybe you just have a free PDF upsell or a free PDF over delivery that once they give you money, it's called surprise and delight. You surprise and delight them with this PDF upsell that just says, hey, by the way, I've created this 3-part story that tells where the company came from, how you guys got into landscaping, and why you're passionate about it through some interesting, intricate storytelling. Here's a PDF that you could delegate to your social media person. Now, if you're used to spending $1,500 to $2,000 a month, what if I produce this for $3,000? It'll give you 3 months, or it'll give you 2 months worth of content that endears you to a new audience. Well, if there's glitches in that, that might be a flag on whether or not this is a good business plan, a good plan for you. But if that resonates, it's like, what's it worth to them? Well, if I could get 4 new leads, well, what's your average ticket? Well, my average ticket, someone gives me, I don't know, $500 a month. Great. 4 new leads is worth $2,000 this month, but you have that content, which is long tail, which lasts over the next 4 months. So you actually are going to be increasing your income by $6,000 over the next 4 months, or $8,000 over the next 4 months. And you only spent $2,000 with me. Oh shit. That's the pain people are feeling. And so if we don't know that about them, the shiny object no one's interested in. The NFTs might from the crowdfunding end. But I have serious concerns about the long-term sustainability for a single business. I think NFTs are here to stay because the demand is so big, but I have yet to see many NFT companies with longevity because there's not I know that Jarrett said about subscription income. That subscription income's tough. But if you're just looking to bring that income in and you're just looking to figure out how to price yourself, you actually have to go to war on business. Do you actually understand these concepts? So all time out there. Any feedback, Jarrett, thoughts, reflections?
No, I'd love to hear Jay. You and I have kind of been throwing a lot of ideas at him, and I also want to be cognizant of the time. So, Jay, what are you thinking about all the things we put out? And maybe we need to do a whole nother episode, part 2.
Reflection.
Yeah.
These guys are assholes. Yeah.
Reflections.
Probably have to
We're
do
not
a
friends.
part 2. No, I loved it. I think it was a lot of the stuff is definitely what I needed to hear. We definitely need to do a part 2.
Okay.
Funny enough, I feel like we've gone all the way around. I've come right back to where I started, but I'm a lot more clear on where much more clear now than I was before. So
I'd like to hear more
based on what
about
you,
that.
yeah. So B2B definitely, I think, is what I'm going to focus on as a way of sort of like paying the bills. I know that building a community is important. And so B2B is what helps me to get to the place where I have the freedom to build a community. And then eventually get to the place where I can monetize that community. Because like right now, when I think of community, I think of like the few people that I know, and like I can't charge those people because I can actually count them. I know who those people are. But if I get to the place where the community is 1 million people, I don't know all of them. I feel a bit more comfortable, doing the NFT sale. You okay?
I almost just died. Sorry, I almost choked there. That's gonna be horrible on mic. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. So if we get to a place where it's a much bigger community, I think I feel more comfortable leveraging that community for monetization. So if I sort of think of it linearly, it's B2B, but then it's also about being comfortable with sales, being knowledgeable about the sales process, like Grant was talking about there at the end. It actually makes me feel like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, and maybe the whole that suggestion that I made when I sent you those comments about, just sort of like getting a sales partner or hiring a salesperson on commission to sort of take care of that is probably the way to go. Then
And let me tell you something, a great landing page that, like, if you had a partner or a closer, they're going to ask you a question. Jay, what am I selling? And we're going to have a very similar conversation where I'm a sales guy and I don't currently know what I would sell for you. If I walked out of this door right now and someone said, I've got 10K to spend in marketing, I'd be like, let me get back to you. So when you do just a landing page, I build websites in part because it actually replaces the need for that role. A landing page, if you had a landing page on your new website that said, like the link at the top says work with me, and they click that button and it goes to a page, there's an option for them to work with you as a podcast network. That's something else. But to hire our services, the question is, what are those services? What does it cost? And how does it benefit them? If anything, I think, so that you could focus on your B2C and craft, let your craft lead. The main thing that I would sell you for right now, if I were lost and I didn't know what to sell, I'd be like, I know this podcast Spotify consultant who's a master at getting earballs instead of eyeballs, getting ears to listen to your message. Hire this guy for $1,000 a day. He'll train your team on how to create content. You don't have to create a single deliverable except show up and give them your playbook because of your reputation. That's the direction I would go to B2B with you to jumpstart income ASAP while you sort out maybe services for B2B and all. Simplify the model. That's what I would do. But I like the fact you came back to B2B. I think that's great.
No, I love that idea. We definitely probably need to talk about that some more. But yeah, so B2B, yeah, B2B pays the bills, allows you to expand the community, and then from the community, you also monetize that community and take it from there. But
I agree, Jarrett.
that's the way I see it in my head.
I think this is a good point. What you just said, let's leave that there. Let's do the outros because we're way over time and we're going to do a part 2. So
let's do it.
Everyone has been listening. Thank you so much for hopping on. This is our first Saturday meetup here. And make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at Not Crypto Bros. And next Saturday, let's totally come back and pick up what we just left on what you just said, Jay, because I think we're almost coming down the runway, and I think we're about to take off on some actual real kind of then taking the idea into action and what are actionable steps.
Yeah. And to those watching, if you have your own big 3 questions about any business, not just crypto, because the guys and I are always looking for new nuggets, new wisdoms, new knowledge to create our own freedom, our own financial freedom, and to be a part, yes, also of the technology moving forward. Please submit your questions, participate, because we actually want to have your business featured on Small Business Saturday. So thanks so much, guys.